Geoffrey, it's lovely to be in your garden. Obviously, you are known for football. I think you're the leading football correspondent of the country, aren't you? And you have been for many years. 8 years at the Independent when they started up.
Yeah.
21
years
at Telegraph,
yeah.
and then 8 at the Times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But what people don't know is you've got quite an arty background. You've got a fantastic garden here, and you spend a lot of time in your garden and love it, don't you? You might not, apart from when you're driving the lawnmower into the river.
Yes, I know. Not my finest moment.
You're not so good in those as you are with driving balls, are you?
Yeah.
But you did play yourself football to a very high level. Pretty high level.
But Bunny, you are very much at the pinnacle of your profession. To compare me with any of the footballers that I write about is just, I couldn't even mow Beckham's lawn. I'm not in that, and that's what I like, because to be close to people who are as passionate and as skilled in a subject, profession, a passion like you are. I'm very fortunate that I get to meet footballers and to hear them talk about their passion and what drives them and what makes them so good.
And this is why you're such a good interviewer, because you are always bigging up your guests when you interview, as you were doing then to me.
That's not reflected glory. I think it's just, I'm not in awe, because I don't do awe. Yeah. I just love talking to people who are passionate about what they are. And with footballers.
Totally
and you look at the footballers, and it's not simply about their technical skills. It's about the journeys they've been on, the adversity they've overcome, whether they've had racism, whether they've had food poverty as kids, whether their parents have divorced, whether they didn't have a car in their family, so they had no one to take them to training. Yeah. So all that journey that they've been on, journey's a horrible word, but with sportsmen and women, we've just seen it with the athletes and the rowers and all the people who competed at the Olympics, the adversity that they overcome. I find that, so you're writing about human spirit, you're also writing about sport.
But also we're a nation of gardeners, but really football.
We're a nation of footballers, Bunny.
Well, I think we're a nation. But
the gardens.
We are both passionate about both, aren't we? Let's
absolutely.
face it.
Yeah.
And a lot of some of the footballers I know are really keen gardeners.
Yeah.
And
Eric Dyer.
Eric Dyer, perfect.
Hugely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting about you is, your family background is amazing. So your father was one of the most famous architects, along with Richard Rogers and
Norman Foster,
and
that generation. I don't think he was quite sort of that elite level, but yeah,
almost,
he did some amazing. Like the house we grew up in, 81 Swains Lane. I mean, it's quite an iconic house. Yeah. Used for films, used for all sorts.
Very
advertising
modernist.
shoots.
He using corten steel way before. Now it's becoming vogue, and this was years and years ago. But your mother too. So she worked with Geoffrey Jellicoe, with Susan Jellicoe. She was a garden designer.
John Brookes as well.
John Brookes. So that would have been. She started doing art at the Slade, and then she went on into garden design.
She exhibited at Chelsea, because I remember as a kid going and don't quite know why. Well, she must have done through her garden design. She was a designer, so she worked with Terence Conrad at Habitat when they started out.
Off with Terence, designing all sorts of things with
we
him.
do have a fantastic photograph of my brother, who's this very famous Islamic scholar, in a pram.
Can we have your brother's name? So he's
he's Tim to me.
Tim Winter.
But he is. How long have you got? Because he's got a very long name. He is Sheikh Abdal Hakim Murad. I think I've missed a little bit out, because I did a podcast in Saudi, very well-known Islamic podcast, and I didn't get my brother's name right, and they were really ticking me off. They said, "You're so disrespectful." But anyway, he's Tim for me, and he's a wonderful individual.
We've got this Muslim scholar, and I always remember he spoke about you, and he said when you were lads, he was obviously highly.
My brother was never a lad. Well, I think I was a lad. My brother was. I think he was a scholar even when he was in the pram.
And he said something like, I'm going to be rich and famous, and you're just going to be mucking around with your footballer mates. And now you've got a 10-bedroom mansion, and you're married to an ex-Bond girl. And I think that's a lovely way to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, he said that in the press, and of course that word gained immediate traction on social media, as it does in its normal, mature way. So I sent him a message and said, listen, next time you talk to the press, just to give me some street cred, just say it's a 1-bedroom house and 10 Bond girls, because at least I'll come out of that slightly better. But he's a remarkable individual, and I'm incredibly blessed to be his brother.
So, and your sister's a very well-known artist as well. So there's three of you.
I'm actually genuinely the least talented in my family, and that is absolutely not false modesty. One thing I've got a work ethic.
Yeah.
I get up 5 o'clock every morning, attack
all
the day,
three
the
have.
Gary Neville.
You're
Yeah, oh
all
absolutely, yeah,
three.
but they've
It's
got
been-
talent as well.
Yeah.
My brother, his calligraphy is just amazing. So he's
Yeah.
artistic, he's academic, obviously spiritual. My sister is a fantastic artist. The art that she does is just, you know, I don't just say that because she's my sister. I just go, wow, that is so innovative. I am the boring one of the family.
But your garden, I just think this is lovely. So your father helped you
Yeah,
with the
and-
dovecot,
yeah.
converting it.
Yeah.
And you've got your house over there, and then we've got these lovely tobacco plants, hydrangeas, hollies, and then the view
Yeah, the
is
view's
just
amazing.
stunning, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
we got some friends who gave us some amazing. What would you
Tobacco
call
plants?
it? No.
Cosmos?
Kishana, we got the cosmos in there. We've got
Yeah.
no. It was the soil. They gave us amazing stuff. You know, this was
Oh,
just
they
a sort of
gave you-
ordinary grass, and they gave us some fantastic compost. It was
maybe
a bit more-
digestate?
digestate,
Maybe digestate.
which I think you gave to Eric. Did
Eric
you gave,
is
gave so
wonderful
anyway, so that
stuff,
all went
yeah.
in there, and it was like a teardrop going into the ground and a fountain bouncing back up. It was amazing. So I think you just plant something and it takes off and let nature do its work. But actually, I'm sorry, I can't believe I'm telling you this, Colston, Newcastle. But actually, the pre-soil soil, whatever you call it, the digestive biscuits that we put in there. I mean, and then it's just exploded because this wasn't here. I don't
But
know,
the
a
thing
year
is,
ago.
I think this is very thin soil, aren't
Yeah.
you? On a very thin topsoil.
Very historic soil. If you dig down, you will get Roman villas and you'll get dinosaurs. We've got them all around here.
Yeah, no, it's a very rich area. But what I do, like you, so where I've got grass borders, I'll just spray them off with glyphosate, and then I whop on the digestate.
Right, brilliant.
Maybe you don't use the glyphosate, and then that digestate just builds up the organic matter. It's weed free,
Yeah.
and it's a byproduct, and so we get it free.
Oh, right, okay.
Because
yeah.
they produce it from these gas-making
Yeah.
plants, and gas is given off from organic matter, which drives boilers and
Yeah.
things. big
So
gas.
even though it looks sort of fairly chaotic,
Sort of-
there is like a little yew hedge will run through it in a sort of curly whirly bit. You've also
so you
got
put some structure
yeah.
coming in a serpentine.
You've also got 3 apple trees in there. The middle one's a
yeah.
red Falstaff, and we went to see Ian McEwan on stage in
Yes.
London, Henry IV Part 1 and Part 2, and he played Falstaff. So that was absolute coincidence. But if it's good enough for Falstaff, we should be able to make very good cider from it.
Maybe. Then you go on, you've got the estate fencing framing the view, and you're very sporty, obviously, in your garden. So you've got now got a tennis court.
Yeah,
And you can
which is mainly used for football.
mainly used for football.
Apologies, LTA.
And so who plays football? Who do you play with?
My son and his friends, and my creaky knees, and yeah.
So you can
But
still,
the most
and you're still good.
No, but I was hopeless anyway. But I'm even more hopeless now.
Sorry,
I'm
for university.
Yeah, but
for
everyone played for
Edinburgh.
universities. But
No,
that
they
level.
didn't.
But sorry, but I deal with people who are. I think it's the chances of even when you go into a Premier League academy as a kid, the chances of anyone absolutely making it.
What would it be?
Oh, I think it's 0.0012%.
Right.
It's just
Tiny.
the pubs of this country are full of people who thought they could have been a contender.
Yeah.
But actually,
you
to get
did
to
it
the
one-
top.
Did you ever think?
No.
Even when you were 7 or 8, you didn't. That wasn't in your
No,
sights. But
no.
at 7 or 8, you decided you'd be a football journalist.
It's slightly later. It was when I was at school. There was a brilliant football correspondent at the Times who
Yes.
basically just went around covering football matches, but mainly talking about the mad journey of actually getting to the game. So he
Yeah.
wrote this brilliant piece on Brazil, England at Maracanã and Rio, and I would say probably about 2/3 of it was about the madcap journey he had in a taxi going to the.
Right.
And I like that. And I like that opportunity to use football as a window on life. Sounds a bit David Brenty, but just a sort of window on socio-economic issues in this country, like the issues that we have with childhood obesity,
Yeah.
with the fact that a lot of kids in this country go to school without having had breakfast. You know,
Rashford.
so Marcus Rashford
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
You know, other issues like Jordan Henderson does a lot of good work with autism. Jack Grealish, another England international, does a lot of work with cerebral palsy.
Environmentalists.
And then environmentalists. Well, Eric. I mean, Eric's very big on, and so
the Arsenal guy.
yeah, Hector Bellerin. Yeah, it's left
Planting
Arsenal now.
trees
Oh,
yeah.
thousands. And
Yeah.
I think it's quite right, because you look at the elite footballers, it makes sense for them to take jets. It makes sense for them to fly everywhere. But they, a lot of them are aware of that. Particularly those who've got kids, and they do sort of offset the carbon element. And I think that is good. Footballers are far more conscientious, partly because of the backgrounds that they've come from, but also they spend a lot of their time in the outdoors. I mean, you go to some of these training grounds. So where Eric used to train at Tottenham Hotspur, unbelievable. I mean, it is.
Vegetables,
but little things. So on a very serious level. So Carlo Ancelotti, who's the great manager of Real Madrid, one of his teammates when he was at AC Milan, Borgonova, he basically got Lou Gehrig's disease, and he reckoned that it was because he used to play in bare feet on the training pitches. I think it was AC Milan at the time. They would just have sort of kickabouts, and he would take his boots off, and because of the pesticide that they would use,
really?
and he died about 10, 12 years later. And Carlo Ancelotti wrote this great book, and all the money raised was for his old teammates, for kids and his family. So footballers are very aware of issues like that.
I think we used to think of them as a different sort of subspecies, but I think now people really admire them, and they no longer seem to hit their press continually for falling out of nightclubs and things.
Well, they don't.
More for social. Exactly, it's changed.
And also, that's a slight
whole
reflection of the media, that you have one footballer who falls out of a nightclub and everyone thinks that it. The majority of footballers I know don't drink during the season.
No, quite focused, to put it mildly. But to go back to your background, so you did do English at Edinburgh, and amongst your small class of 5, you were with Sarah Raven and Isabel Bannerman, who obviously works with Julian Bannerman, and very well-known garden designers. So the 3 of you, out of a team of about 5 of you, that's extraordinary.
I think there are probably a few more in the class, but I mean, it was probably 10 or so.
And you got along with them well, and
I wouldn't have said they were big football fans, but Isabel Eustace, was quite a well-known model at the time.
Beautiful looking, I'm sure.
Tall. She's a really good footballer, actually.
Yes.
So I think people were slightly in awe of her, actually, because she was obviously established, and then but I take great pride in. I've had no contact with her for 40 years, but just sort of seeing what she's done. Was she involved in the Ground Zero?
Yes, she was in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I was going, good for you, because you want to see people go off and not simply do great things, but to follow their passion. And obviously Sarah Raven, I saw her at Chelsea this year, and just sort of saw her. She was on her stall, probably sounds a little bit too sort of market garden, but and there she was, and she's done absolutely brilliantly.
Brilliant business, really
again,
well.
Following her passion.
Yeah.
And that's what we should encourage everyone to do in life.
If they can find their passion.
Yeah.
I just think that is not always easy.
But that's the problem. We have an education system in this country which pigeonholes. And you go in and see, I mean, I was told, you'll find this hilarious, I was told at 14, I went to see at school, quite an intelligent school, God knows how I got in because of my brother probably, but I went in to see the careers officer, and they did all these clever tests, and they talked to and he said, yeah, you're definitely going to be a farmer. And I said, I live in Regent's Park, I live in Highgate Village. My ability with tractors here, we had a sit-on lawnmower, which I then went and drove into the river. So the thought of me being, I think the national agriculture of this country has got enough problems without me being a farmer. So
let's walk down and see what else you've done with your garden, because it's on all these different levels.
Yeah.
And what is really nice is that you've really used them. So you've got this top level.
Yeah.
Then you set your croquet lawn.
Yeah.
That, and then the tennis court below that.
It's a croquet lawn, slightly under protest because it's normally a 5-a-side football. Everything's football here. So like cricket here. So when that gravel path got put in, I was going, how on earth am I able to do my run up? Yeah. So actually, if you do bowling, we normally have a sort of cricket stumps down there. If I'm bowling at Toby, my son, we have to jump over that to do it, which was a bit annoying. But far more importantly, when it comes to cricket, is that my pride and joy, the bench.
Oh, so tell us about your bench.
Well, the bench is, should we go and sit on it?
Yes.
Because if we sit on it, we can rewind 100 years to Lord's Cricket Club, to what is now the Mound Stand, which is where you would have sat and watched. Do say, I won't charge you MCC entrance rates or Lord's entrance rates, Middlesex. And this, I just love, we're blessed in this country with a sort of the history. So to have something like this, really probably should have it inside. But actually, so
Is it oak?
my mother, I don't know what it is actually.
I think it is hardwood, isn't it? Yeah.
My mother knew the architect who was redoing the Mound Stand. And at Lord's, the home of cricket. And she just said to him, I've just driven past up Regent's Park Road and I've just seen your, or St John's Wood Road, I've just seen you're throwing out some of them. I mean, these
Threw them out.
So throwing them out. So I then, when my parents passed away, I said to my brother and sister, this is what I must have these. I think there were 2 of them. And so I got this one. And I messaged, you can WhatsApp MCC, the great, august, effectively governors of the game, ancient governors of the game. And I WhatsApped their museum and I said, can I say that if I sit on this would be in the same bench that people in the 30s would have sat on and watched the great fast bowlers at the time who then went on and got involved in the bodyline series against Bradman, so like Larwood and Vose and great cricketers like that. And they messaged back and said, yeah, absolutely, it's one of the ones from the 30s. I don't think it quite goes back to W.G. Grace, but I just love that idea and the fact that ghosts are all around us, particularly in sport, whether it's memories or whether you believe in ghosts. So just to sit here and just to look out on there, I think Lord's has got a slightly better outfield than this lawn, but just to have that.
No, we've helped gardens with the Grace family actually. They're
really?
keen gardeners, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. But this timber was.
Do they all have beards?
None of them there's pictures in their loo of the beard and the lovely man himself. But no, they don't.
Right.
But the timber was probably better quality. It seems pretty good nick, doesn't it? No sign of rot here.
Yeah, well, we did have it restored, which was quite
was
quite sort of emotional. It's amazing the people you can find in the country. This sort of smelting, and he just made all these, and he took great pride. And again, it comes back to these things. We are a nation of obsessives with our little passions. Probably why we never have revolutions, because we're too busy doing our garden, playing football and mending things like this.
But I was interested to hear that. Let's go look at your other bit. That did that crack?
No, it's probably my knee.
Oh gosh, can't be. That yes, football is something like, was it 8 billion in 2022? The amount of money it generated. It's huge business.
Yeah,
and gardening, horticulture, and all the money associated with that is something like 5 billion. So football is way bigger than gardening.
I'm surprised there's not a lot more than that, because you look at...
That's 2022. It's probably increased. It is going up massively.
But the Premier League is so huge, and not simply
that
in
was
the television
Premier
rights.
League,
Yeah,
not
the Premier
the
League.
rest.
And,
Just
and
the
remember,
Premier
the Premier League is one league. We've got it attracts probably half the attendances in the country, in the professional countries.
So it's probably double that.
Easily. Yeah.
So you're way bigger than
But also economically, when a club is doing well in the Premier League, it's not simply the local pubs that benefit. It's the fact that the tourist ball can then go and sort of promote their town, their city around the world, who might not have heard of Ipswich, who might not have heard of Watford.
Massive.
It's worth hundreds and hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
Not simply to the club, but to the city and the town itself when they get promoted.
Well,
so
with
football's
Chelsea,
huge.
it puts us on the map worldwide, but it's just once a year. With you, it's all the time.
We have Chelsea's every weekend.
So I love your little
come on down.
croquet
so
bit
this
down there.
we put this in, and then there were 2 beautiful trees, chestnut trees, which came down in those winds.
Oh right, yes, it was
So
here, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's one here, and you can see the stump the other side, and it was so it crashed bits of it. So it took out this one here, which was so sad because they were about 150 years old, and they were next to obviously the dovecot, and they were put in at the same time. But it has kept us in wood. And my biggest passion in the garden, apart from playing football and sun lounging, is splitting logs.
That is the most calorific thing, isn't it?
Is
there's
it?
a chart. Is it Loughborough University, the sports university?
Yeah.
There's a professor there did a chart of all the gardening activities and how many calories you expend per hour, and axing wood was at the top. And all of gardening is quite energetic. So if I spent 3 hours in the garden and I did an hour mowing lawn, an hour raking the lawn, and an hour weeding, I would use the same amount of calories as if I went to a gym and hit the machines full on for an hour.
Is that right?
It's extraordinary high calorific burn.
Right.
So
Is
it
that
does
why?
keep
So
you
gardeners
fit.
live longer.
Gardeners live. I think it's partly the mental thing that you think about other things.
Yeah.
Air, fresh air. I think you use so many weird foot movements, not like football. I'm bending, twisting.
Yeah.
So you keep your body supple. So it really is good for you.
This is why you're so healthy.
Absolutely. But I always pass you in the car on your bike, cycling around these hills and things.
Yeah.
But come and show me your topiary.
So the topiary down here was put in by Cat when
the James Bond.
Yeah, the James Bond.
James Bond.
The James Bond. This Moneypenny. So this was put in, and she put the yew avenue in. And
she
a lot of
planted
them.
it small, or she?
Tiny, absolutely tiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
how long ago did she plant
well,
those?
it was when a lecture was 11.
11.
And
Gosh,
so that's
now,
12 years ago.
Gosh, they've done so well.
Yeah. Well, a
Yes.
lot of love, a lot of talking.
Yes.
A lot of me trying not to chop them down with a lawnmower.
No.
But a lot of it is based on Alice in Wonderland. So you can see, what is it, the third one down on the right is going to be the it's going to be the March Hare, and you can see sort of Mad Hatters and there's queens and things like that.
It's funny because when King Charles bought Highgrove, when he was a mere prince, he had those golden yew running up from Highgrove, and he sent his two gardeners off to Levens Hall to get inspiration for those, because they were just dumpy blobs, and they came back and said, it was like a Mad Hatter's tea party. He said we could do anything we liked. And so they just created these extraordinary, wonderful shapes. So you're doing a bit like that here.
I have to say, a lot of it is not my work. I do stand
but you
here
enjoy
and go,
it.
I do, I love
and
it.
You,
I mean,
do you guide operations?
Head of operations. No, I think I'm only limited to head of tea making. I think
head
that
of
is
tea
my...
making. But here, it's interesting what Kat's done here. So these Rosa Kent, last time I came, it was full of Rosa Kent all the way along here. And then the blue lavender running up.
The lavender's stunning.
Yeah.
And the wildlife that goes in there. I mean, the
bees in
there are just magnificent. In fact, there are quite a few people who make honey around here. Most houses you go past, they've got little sort of honey pots. Rutland honey is fantastic.
Good,
it's
lovely.
really good.
And the tofu you've created there, was that your father's idea when he did the dovecote?
Don't know. They always look like trains to me, actually.
Trains?
Yeah, they're just sort of emerging from a tunnel.
Buttresses, I would call them.
Yeah, buttresses.
Buttresses.
Yeah.
I
love a buttress.
I love a buttress.
I mean, I didn't really play sort of fives at school, rugby or Eton fives, but I used to love looking at the buttresses, because they came from, because a lot of the schools in this country, the old school, the great schools, were the kids years back would play with a hardened ball against the sort of buttresses of the local cathedral or church.
Oh,
So
really?
so if you look at Westminster Abbey, the sort of buttresses there. So you see, this is the whole point about this country. Everything comes back to sport. You can look at Westminster Abbey and you go, right, I can see how one of the sports started there, because of the sort of buttresses, and people would play off the buttress.
Oh, really?
So, but this is lovely in May when the alliums come out.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it's my favourite moment in the garden. And you know what? It's crazy. You know, I get football 10, 11 months of the year. Alliums last about 10 days. You know,
that's what we love them.
But
a bit more than that.
Yeah, well, but they're like...
Depends on the allium, yeah.
Yeah, but they're like so great teenage love stories. They last for sort of, a fortnight on holiday, and then they disappear. And then, well, maybe you can go back the following year and see them again. But I just think when they take over that, I just think it's beautiful.
So this is your latest development in the garden. Tell me about it. So this is where you have your festival.
Well, we don't live too far from Burley. So a lot of people go and look at the horses. I go and look and buy shirts and chat to friends. And
so you're not interested in eventing?
Not hugely. I'm fascinated in horses. So if I go to horse event, races, whatever, I just find that the elite athlete, whether the jockey, I find that fascinating. I like going and standing in the enclosure in the ring and looking at the jockeys close up.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. But anyway, so we went to Burley, and probably had a little bit too much to drink back in the day, and this was effectively a shed that was being sold. We then went a few months later to Chelsea and saw the same people and saw you could add to it. And it wasn't that expensive in the end. Put a kitchen in there, and for lockdown, you know, we'd come down here with the kids and just play cards on the table and just sort of relax. But oops, can't escape. So that was a lecture, and I asked her to describe the garden, and she said it's continuous, as in the way it just sort of flows down. And she says there's always something to explore and always something to find, and it's always nice and fun, which is good. So in the summer, the kids have, like, they call it a festival, and so this is all field of cloth and gold, of tents and everything, and then they do, what do? They do fruit and veg, so everyone came and dressed up as a sort of different vegetable.
So what were you?
It was when the Olympics was on,
Yeah.
so I came as a Frenchman with a bicycle and onions.
Oh, yes, the beret.
Yes.
The Breton
Yeah,
jumper.
having been at school in France, I had all the kit, couldn't quite fit into it. And then they did a sort of fashion parade, and they came down the steps and they walked there, and there were sort of benches there as if we were at sort of Milan Fashion Week, and they would walk out and come back, and it was brilliant. So this is lovely down here. I mean, it was, you know, we've added bits to it, added the fence at the back with the sort of echoing the corten steel of a house I grew up in, because Dad was a modernist architect. So 81 Swains Lane, as it's known, the house. That echoes that, so it's a nod to my childhood.
And your mother, with her garden design work, I remember one time I came and there were lots of Jellicoe plans of schemes that she'd worked on and things. So was she very modernist in her views? If
she was
married
quite
to a
traditional.
very modernist architect.
Yeah, they didn't do too many jobs together, but they did a couple. Towards the end of their life, they did this amazing project in Canada.
Yes.
Very wealthy Canadian owners who owned a sort of whole stretch of the land that ran along the St. Lawrence Seaway. And I remember Dad sort of coming back and said, but the cars there don't have number plates, they have numbers on the roof, 31, 32, so that, like, you know, for driving around the estate. So if there was any issue, the helicopter would be able to see it and say, oh, there's number 41 down there, come in number 52, your time's up, or whatever.
Wow.
But I talked to my mother once, and I said, oh, you know, how's the job going on Canada? She said, well, I'm moving mountains. And I said, well, Mum, I know you can do great things, but our idea of mountains are Primrose Hill or Hampstead Heath. And he said, no, proper mountains. So she was literally having to move a mountain to improve the view from the main house, so they could see the seaway.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
and the whole climate there. I suppose it would be fairly mild there, temperate, would it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be such harsh winters, perhaps?
Probably not, although they did have a string of racehorses who, when it got too cold up in Canada, they would take down to Florida, where it's obviously warmer, and these horses would have their own plane. So they'd all sort of troop in, speedy boarding, whatever horses do, and I assume they all turned left when they got on the plane and just sort of sat there and watched the film.
Watch the movies with the sharp edge. So did you ever see photographs of the garden, what they created
They
there?
did, yeah, they did have some photographs. It was amazing, but I think it was a great passion of theirs for the two of them to work together. Because Mum had been a designer working with Terence Conlon at Habitat in the 60s and then onwards, but she'd done exhibitions, she'd done, her watercolours was probably her greatest skill. You know, they would be exhibited in the summer exhibition at the RA, which was, and then Dad, of course, would get invited to exhibit. So she was Valerie Winter.
Yes.
So she studied at the Slade, but her watercolours were brilliant. So we were going to stay with friends in the country. She would get up half an hour early, go off with her paint pots and do this wonderful picture. And so any present that you could take these people did not compare to the joy they got. You know, it's like when you come to someone's house and you bring one of your cuttings of your French tarragon, you know, which is that's lovely. It's such a sort of personal thing to do, particularly because it's such a sort of, you know, expression almost of just sort of affection and respect for Mum to leave this painting. And I've got some of her watercolour drawings, and they didn't take her long, 15 minutes. And I'm so envious of people with skills like that.
Yeah. It would be lovely to see what her garden was like. And the garden in your house, What was that like?
In
You went with
Highgate?
this very modernist house.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a huge garden, and I think because the house was all right angles, because that was Dad, and he was very much from the Bauhaus school, and Frank Lloyd Wright, and all these great architects. He loved a right angle. So the garden was actually just sort of flowed a bit more, and there were apple trees in it and a climbing frame. And then what it was good at is that it blended into the cemetery, which might seem slightly weird, because it was what they did. We grew up in sort of Regent's Park, and then Dad found this site on Swains Lane in Highgate, and he bought the sort of cemetery superintendent's house next door, sold that off, and then kept the garden, built on the garden. And there were little things like the stonemasons workshop was in there. We were going to the workshop, and there were all these, basically these old Victorian, because it hadn't been used for about 80, 90 years, Victorian
Chisels.
graves and chisels, tombstones.
Yeah.
And Mum just sort of was very good at blending that all in. But it wasn't a great garden for sport. I mean, there was one side of which is important, one side of the house just had a low sort of metal side, and I used to sort of whack a tennis ball at that. Fortunately, we had a park over the road, which I could go and play football in.
Fascinating. Well, it's lovely to see what you've done here. It's a beautiful garden, really nice. And obviously, sport merges with gardening. Big
Yeah,
time,
I think if I had my way, I'd flatten all this, and I would have football pitched in there. I mean, I whenever I go somewhere,
Yeah.
you know, if I go to our daughters in France, if we go around Versailles, I will go, get all those plants out, because it would make fantastic football pitches, because everything comes back to football.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much indeed.
Oh, pleasure.